What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Figures of Sport. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so you can make sure that you are checking out all of the videos that we are posting here on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We're going to get that up and running. We will be posting some clips of the podcast. If you don't have time to watch the full episode here on YouTube, definitely check out our Instagram, our TikTok. We'll be posting some shorter clips there just for you to kind of get an understanding of what we're all about here at Figures of Sport. And let's make sure that you also have notifications turned on so you do see when we are posting. That's going to be very important. We appreciate all of the support. And let's jump right into it. Obviously, this NBA Finals has been incredible, in my personal opinion. Game 5 of the series is tonight. It is tied 2-2, and it has been excellent, in my personal opinion. As a basketball fan, this has been a joy to watch. It has been a great finals. I think it's been very competitive, and you've gotten to see a lot of great basketball from both sides. And honestly, it has made me very excited to watch. Sometimes the fact that there's been 2 to 3 days between games, uh, it it upsets me. I'm excited to watch it. This series has been back and forth. Obviously, like I said, it's tied 2-2 right now. Oklahoma City lost Game 1. The last episode we posted was prior to Game 1. Oklahoma City fumbled that game away. They absolutely fumbled that game away. I know in our last episode, I definitely talked about how some of those tendencies that they had in that Denver series, specifically Game 1, when they lost a lead late in that game and the Nuggets were able to come back. That is exactly what happened in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Pacers were able to steal that game at Oklahoma City, and then Oklahoma City responded extremely well in Game 2, winning that game to tie it up. But the Pacers, as I mentioned, it's definitely a hard place to play back in Indiana, and they absolutely played a great brand of basketball in Game 3. They won that game, and they should have won Game 4. They absolutely should have won Game 4. Game 4 was a game that the Pacers lost. They 100% lost that game. Uh, the Thunder did not win that game, but the Pacers lost it. They gave it away. Let's talk about SGA. SGA had, I believe it was 35 points, and he had, 15 points in clutch time, which is the last 5 minutes of the game, scoring 15 points. I believe in that first half, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys, but I believe he had either 0 free throw attempts or 2 free throw attempts. Very unlike a player like SGA, who we know he's been called the free throw merchant, things like that. But in Game 4, it was a very different story in that first half. The Pacers limited their fouls on him. He was away from the free throw line. And in that fourth quarter, he was able to completely change the game by forcing his way into the hole, getting to the free throw line, and like I said, scoring 15 points in clutch time. That's your MVP. That is exactly why he won the MVP, doing things like that, being the closer of this Oklahoma City Thunder team. But we can't look away from a guy like Jalen Williams. His game has traveled exceptionally well. I believe in Game 3 he had 26 points. Game 4 he had 27 points, and he's been a great player alongside SGA. I said from the jump, if the Thunder are to win this series, they need a good amount of contributions from guys like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. And Game 4, you had a guy like Chet Holmgren have 15 and 14. He's playing exceptionally well. Alex Caruso had 20 points off the bench. They switched things up in Game 4, bringing Caruso off the bench and inserting Hartenstein back into the starting lineup, something that they didn't do through the first few games. Now that allows that second unit to have a breath of fresh air with Caruso. You have the double bigs to start the game, get a little bit more size, rebound the ball well for the Thunder. And, in Game 4, Tyrese Halliburton, on the Pacers side, had 18 and 7. Those are good numbers for most point guards. When you're in the NBA Finals, you need more from a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. He needs to be a guy that has to average at least 20 points a game, and his turnovers is definitely what hurt the Pacers in Game 4. You know, having 5 turnovers in Game 4, it's very unlike a player like him. He's very controlled. He's very careful with the ball. But in Game 4, he was a little bit careless, and those turnovers, similar to Game 1 as to why they were down early on, having over 20 turnovers in the 25 turnovers, I believe, throughout the entire game, and 20 in the first half. The turnovers at the end of the game for the Pacers definitely came back to bite them, and it was something that, as I sat back and watched, I was very in a with no other words to use, disgusted by the way the Pacers were playing. You know, they were playing sloppy, too fast. They definitely played a different style of basketball. The Thunder kind of imposed their will on the defensive end in that fourth quarter, and the Pacers kind of crumbled at home, which is something that you don't truly see. Now, something that's going to be very important going into tonight's Game 5 is Tyrese Halliburton. Like I said, he's a guy that I think for the Pacers to have a chance to win this series, which now, knowing that it's tied 2-2, and the winner of Game 5 goes on to win this series. I believe it's 82% of the time, 80% of the time when the series is tied. It's going to be incredibly difficult for the Pacers to win 2 games, and one of them has to be in Oklahoma City. If they want to force a Game 7, they have to win one of the next 2 games and then have to win Game 7 to win this NBA Finals in Oklahoma City. Going to be an extremely tough thing to do with the way that, you know, they played in Game 4. You can't give away a game like that and expect to win the NBA Finals. Guys like Obi Toppin for the Pacers have contributed exceptionally well. I believe Game 3, we called it the Ben Mathurin game. He played an exceptional game, but then in Game 4, not so much. The Pacers, the problem with the Indiana Pacers team is they don't have a guy that you can consistently count on for a 20-point performance. Yes, I understand they have Pascal Siakam. Yes, they have Tyrese Halliburton. But sometimes, like I said, Tyrese Halliburton is a guy that's not going to score 20 points. He may score 12 points, 14 points, 18 points. You kind of never really know who all of these points are going to come from. And in Game 4, Pascal Siakam started the game hot, very hot. And he fizzled out in the second half, and I believe he shot 6 of 15. That's not something that you can do and expect to win games. Your stars have to make buckets. And Jalen Williams and SGA on the Thunder side went out and did that. SGA over 30 points, Jalen Williams over 25 points, Chet Holmgren, I believe he had 14 or 15 points and 14 or 15 rebounds, one of the two. But again, that is the level of contributions you need from your stars to win this game. Miles Turner, he's been a shell of himself over the last few games. We understand that he has been dealing with an illness, but he looked exhausted out there in Game 4. And that is going to make winning this series for the Indiana Pacers that much harder. If they are not getting consistent contributions from guys, from their starters, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton, it is going to be hard to win this series. And especially, like I said before, knowing that they have to win this series, they have to win at least one game in Oklahoma City to win this series. It's going to be extremely difficult. So going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how the Pacers respond tonight in Game 5. But one thing that is very interesting to note is that it has been a long time since each of these teams have lost back-to-back games. I believe the Indiana Pacers, the last time they lost back-to-back games was in March. And the Thunder, I believe it was sometime in April. But again, this is something that, once they have lost those games, they bounce back with, they have bounced back with an average victory margin of over 14 points for each team, I believe. The Pacers was about 14.3, 14.5, and the Thunder was about 17 points after a loss. So, it's very interesting to see what is going to kind of unfold in tonight's game five. I'm very excited to watch this. And as I mentioned earlier, SGA, he did what closers do in that fourth quarter, scoring 15 points in clutch time, giving his team the lead with a 3-point field goal late in that fourth quarter. And I believe that was the first lead they had in the entire second half. And it's listen, a lot of people may not enjoy watching two smaller market teams such as Indiana and Oklahoma City in the finals, but in my personal opinion, this has been one of the best finals that we've seen in the last few years. Um, watching these two small market teams play, it's going to be very interesting to see how teams maybe move forward with the way of roster construction. You know, Obviously you see teams like Phoenix, three big names: Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. That's not something that has worked for them over the last few seasons. You know, you look at a team like the Pacers, a lot of, you got a homegrown talent in Tyrese Halliburton. Well, not really homegrown. I guess he was acquired via trade, right? A couple years back. But, you have a guy like Miles Turner who's been there for a long time. You have Pascal Siakam, who you acquired via trade within the last couple of years. Then you have guys that are just grinders: Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nemhard, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, Ben Mathurin. Guys that are going to fight and contribute. And, on the other side, you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have been extremely well built through the draft. Guys like Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and then, supplemental pieces such as Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso. Those are ways that you build a team. Young players, add some veterans, and kind of let them develop on their own. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, though, going forward, how we see roster construction. And speaking of that, one of the most recent things that happened, I believe it was at the time of recording this, it was yesterday on Father's Day. And it was the Memphis Grizzlies trading Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for 4 first-round picks, Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. A lot of questions going on with the Grizzlies. Does that mean they're moving towards a rebuild? Does that mean that they are moving off of Desmond Bane to try to use those other picks to acquire another star? I don't think they're going to enter a rebuild. I think they're going to pay Triple J, and they're going to keep John Morant. I don't think that they should move off of those two guys just yet, but it is quite interesting to see that, the Grizzlies have gone that direction. What is going to be the formula for their new team? Remember, they had fired their coach Taylor Jenkins late in the season. They were a top 5 seed or top 6 seed, I believe, and now you kind of see that this team is going to look a little bit different. On the other side of that trade, the Orlando Magic, now they have a young core with Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and now you add a guy like Desmond Bane. A lot of times, a lot of people were saying that they need a traditional point guard to help run that offense. I don't think that's necessarily true. Now, when you watch the way they play, Franz can handle the ball, Paolo can handle the ball, and then a guy like Desmond Bane is going to go out and spread the floor. KCP has not been the addition that they thought he would be after signing him in free agency from Denver a couple years ago. Desmond Bane is a guy who can get you 18 to 20 points on a nightly basis. So now when you add that to your team with Paolo Banchero, with a Franz Wagner, and then a guy like Wendell Carter, who has practiced his three-point shooting, can space the floor. Now it's time for some of those younger guys, Anthony Black, Jet Howard, to kind of come in and go and run this team. And now things are going to look a little bit different in the East. Obviously, Boston's hurt. It's going to be very interesting to see what this young Orlando Magic team can do. But let's move forward now. And I want to hear what you guys think about this NBA Finals series so far. Like I said, I think it's been a great series, tied at 2-2 going into game 5. It's going to be a pivotal game. It's going to be an exciting game over in Oklahoma City. Remember, after this game, they will play in Indiana for game 6. And then if the Pacers can win one of these 2 games here, they will move into a game 7 back at Oklahoma City. It's going to be interesting to see. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Who takes this series? Who wins tonight in Game 5? And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts. Moving forward, let's talk about the Stanley Cup Finals. The Stanley Cup Finals, obviously, I know personally for some of the fans that have watched the podcast, the Stanley Cup hockey in general isn't something that we've usually touched on too much, but this has been a great series to watch. The Florida Panthers are facing the Edmonton Oilers in a rematch from last year. Now, if we look, I believe that this is the first time that it has we have seen the last two teams from the previous finals rematch in the finals since 2009, right? Now, the Oilers are trying to win their first Stanley Cup since 1993. And a guy like Connor McDavid, I know everyone has seen that video from last season's Stanley Cup Finals, berating his team in the locker room. That's a leader, though. But the Oilers in Game 5 of this series, they completely unraveled. Having 85 minutes worth of um, 85 minutes worth of penalty time, that's not a recipe for success. It's going to be extremely, extremely difficult for you to play and win a finals game, a Stanley Cup Finals game, shorthanded for that much time. It's increasingly difficult to win that game alone, fully healthy and fully staffed, ready to go with all of your players available. But being in that penalty box for 85 minutes of a game is increasingly difficult. Now it's going to be interesting to see who can come out of Game 6. Do the Panthers repeat as champions in tomorrow's Game 6? Again, this is recorded on Monday, June 16th. Game 6 is going to be June 17th. It's going to be extremely interesting to see who can win that matchup. Again, in a rematch, you kind of learn some of your opponent's tendencies. Maybe you can bounce back, but Game 6, if the Edmonton Oilers continue to play at the level that they have been playing outside of Game 5, I think they can win Game 6 and force a Game 7. And Connor McDavid, he's been a great player. He's probably one of, if not the best players in hockey. So is Brad Marchand, though, and he is leading that Florida Panthers team. But if Connor McDavid can lead this Edmonton Oilers team to a victory in Game 6 and potentially a Game 7 victory, I think his legacy as a great young player in this game and as the best player in hockey might be cemented. Let me know what you guys think below on that. Moving forward, we have some news in MLB. Yesterday evening, out of nowhere, a trade happened that no one really saw coming, at least to this team. And I know there's been rumors that a potential Rafael Devers trade can happen. He was unhappy with the position change, um, moving from his natural position at third base over to DH. A lot of questions about, being a potential locker room, a bad presence in the locker room, things of that nature. Obviously, we're not going to dig too deep into that, but I do think that that trade was extremely unexpected, and I'm not too sure how to feel about that return. You get a guy like Jordan Hicks in that return, Kyle Harrison, a young pitcher who he's been up and down, over the last couple of years. He's had some good moments, but he's also had some dark moments, and kind of seeing that, you know, obviously they're going to get a couple other young prospects, James Tibbs, and I believe Jose Bayo is the last piece in that deal. But to me, what it kind of looked like was a salary dump. Surprisingly, the Red Sox, obviously Devers wasn't happy there, but that contract, the unhappiness, and of course with the Red Sox kind of bringing up a lot of their young players. They have Christian Campbell up, they have Marcelo Meyer up, they have Roman Anthony up now. There's just not enough room to have all of these young players. Obviously Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, guys that are natural infielders. Alex Bregman is on the IL. You still have a guy like Trevor Story. It's just interesting to see why the Red Sox did this deal at this exact moment. They're coming off an extremely high note, sweeping the New York Yankees, um, and now moving Devers when they've been in such a great stretch. Devers has been, if anything, a great hitter, as he usually has been throughout his career. The problem with Rafael Devers was the attitude, right? When you bring in a guy like Alex Bregman, sometimes you expect your star players to just want to win. And Rafael Devers didn't necessarily have that same attitude. He knew he wanted to be a third baseman, he wanted to be the starting third baseman. But if you kind of go in and look at his statistics over the last few years, Rafael Devers has been one of the worst fielding in third baseman in all of baseball, not just the American League, but in all of baseball. Um, High number of errors season after season, and now you see that this has forced him out uh, of the Red Sox organization. Now, the Red Sox, they, in my opinion, you get some younger outfield prospects, and on top of that, you get some young pitchers, or a young pitcher, and a guy in Jordan Hicks who's a hard throwing right hander. He's a guy that came from the St. Louis Cardinals organization. He was a reliever turned into a starter, had some success early on last year as a starter, but fatigue kind of uh, hurt him later on, and it forced him to not perform as he was in that first part of the season. He's having some similar struggles this year. It's going to be interesting to see if him and Kyle Harrison, probably the two main pieces, or two of those main pieces in that deal, can bounce back under some strong coaching in that Red Sox organization. Um, especially after you saw that the Red Sox were moving in a different direction and trying to compete this year. Now, with the Rafael Devers trade, like I said, in my personal opinion, it seems more like a salary dump kind of move. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this team now going forward. Again, Alex Bregman is on the IL. He's not expected to come back until late June, early July. So a couple more weeks without him, and he had an excellent start to the season. But now it's time for those young guys to come in and perform. And as I said, the Red Sox have been on a great stretch as of late. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks as they get acclimated to not having that bat in the lineup. Do some of these young guys come in and perform? Are they going to be great additions to this team in the long run? You know, in a division that has the Orioles struggling, the Rays aren't, playing at the highest of levels, um, and the Toronto Blue Jays kind of hovering. The Red Sox were over 500, competing, playing good ball. It's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with this team. But he's going to have Rafael Devers is going to have some of those same issues as far as not being a starting third baseman for the Giants. They have a guy in Matt Chapman who they locked up for, a little bit of a longer term contract. And where is he going to play? Is he going to be a DH over there? Is he going to play occasionally at third base and move Matt Chapman to a different position? It's a little bit unclear. I think he's going to have some of those same doubts as far as where he's going to play over in San Francisco. But San Francisco has surprised a lot of people this season with their play. And I think it was a great move for San Francisco. They're not. They're going to be taking on that full Devers contract, but a guy like Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks, they're two pitchers that have struggled this season. So moving off of those two guys and bringing in a bat like Rafael Devers, that's really something that you can't turn down. Now you just have to hope that you can make Devers happy over there. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out. But shifting our focus onto other MLB news, Shohei Ohtani will be making his return to the mound tonight, Monday night against the San Diego Padres, and it was it was a surprise. I think obviously when he signed that extremely large $700 million contract. He was coming off of Tommy John surgery, And then he had that incredible season last year, hitting over 50 home runs and, winning the MVP. Ohtani is a guy who can pitch at a high level, but his problem has been um, staying healthy as a pitcher. This is his second Tommy John surgery, a very extended absence. But the Dodgers rotation is quite clear, in shambles. And, so many guys are on the IL. Obviously, your big signing, Blake Snell, on the IL. And having a guy like Ohtani rejoin this rotation, it's going to be a breath of fresh air for this organization. And they're finally going to get their money's worth for that two-way player, that $700 million contract. Um, Now, I haven't seen any reports on how many pitches he might, be limited to in his first start back, how many innings. But again, coming off of a Tommy John surgery, and on top of that, an extended absence, missing all of last year, and then the first couple of months of this season, it's gonna be. It's just nice to have that two-way Ohtani back. As your DH, as your starting pitcher every 5-6 days, it's going to be a great sign to see what he does today. It can be a tell on how he has recovered. What his we're going to take a look at his velocity, his pitch locations, all those things. But it's exciting to have Ohtani back in his full capacity, and baseball is better when he is performing on both sides of the ball because he's always a great talking point. It's something that you don't see often. A two-way guy who performs at high levels on both sides. Quite literally since Babe Ruth, 80 years ago, 90 years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ohtani bounces back today against a strong Padres lineup. Speaking of the Padres, we visited San Diego last week, and it was incredibly beautiful. Petco Park, if you guys haven't been to Petco Park, I would highly recommend it. Beautiful stadium, beautiful city of San Diego, and yeah, it. I just missed Ohtani's return, but I definitely did see a Padres win against the Dodgers last week, and like I said, I'm excited for baseball to be, in full swing. The finals are coming to an end soon. The NBA finals at least, and the Stanley Cup Finals. Baseball is going to be in full effect. That means we're going to have a lot of coverage on the MLB, and soon enough we'll be back talking about the NFL. We're going to add UFC now to our discussions, and make sure you guys are on the lookout. We're going to aim for Mondays as our weekly post, our weekly YouTube post and podcast episodes. And we are excited to be back. A lot more coverage, different sports for you guys, and we hope to see you guys on the next episode. Let me know in your guys' comments what you guys think. Who's going to win this NBA Finals? Who wins tonight in Game 5? Who wins tomorrow's Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals? And I want to know more about our supporters. What do you guys want to hear? Who's your favorite teams? Let me know, and we look forward to catching you guys on the next episode. And don't forget, make sure you click that subscribe button, notifications on, and we will see you guys next week.